now there's a paved road that comes right past the front. We sent us here and this is what we found. I bet most people drive past and have no idea what was here.
Welcome back to Midday. We're down at the Sagebrush Theatre this afternoon, checking out the latest production taking to the stage for Western Canada Theatre. It's called The Children of God. And joining us, we have the playwright, the writer, the person in charge of this whole production, Corey Payette. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for coming down.
We've watched just a small snippet of what this is all about. I believe we saw the opening scene, very powerful right off the top.
Well, the show takes place in two time periods, 20 years apart, and looks at the intergenerational impacts of the residential school system. So part of it is at a residential school and sort of seeing the day-to-day life of these young people. And then the second part is many years later, seeing how they are dealing with that intergenerational trauma.
I'm right behind you, Tom.
We see the opening scene where it appears a mother has come to find her children, but she wasn't admitted in, or originally she wasn't admitted in. Tell me a bit about that.
Well, I think that a lot of what was kept from these students at the school was that their families tried to see them. They oftentimes would camp outside the school waiting to see their children, but they just never knew that they came. And so it created rifts and conflicts years later when kids felt like, why didn't you come and get us? Why didn't you take us away? And that relationship is one that we try to explore as part of this storytelling, to see that these families did everything they could, and it was the system kept them apart and separated these families.
First half of the production then is from the first part of it, and then is the second half 20 years later?
They actually follow each other at the same time. So one scene will be in the 1950s, and the next one right away you'll see those same characters transform in front of your eyes and become their older selves.
Why are you passionate about this? I know you have OG Cree heritage. You're from Northern Ontario. I understand during your school time and your time growing up, you weren't taught about this.
Well, growing up in Northern Ontario, this wasn't a part of our educational system. This wasn't talked about in our communities. And whenever it was talked about, it was seen as something that we don't talk about that. That's not something that we talk about, because it was just taboo and it wasn't touched on. And so I think when I finally came to understand of this history alongside the rest of the country, it was something that started from a place of anger and frustration, that how could this history have been kept from us, and how could these survivors have been silenced for so many years. And so in that time since I started writing, there's been an enormous amount of work done through the work of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and all their calls to action, their 94 calls to action that they've made. And I think that this piece is just a part of that larger journey, and that I hope that people will be able to come into it and see a story that is using a form that's familiar to them. The musical theater form structure is very familiar and accessible for everyone. And so seeing this story, this Canadian story, the one that is about the resilience of people who are from this land and that we are all proud to be a part of, but it's about understanding that history, recognizing and acknowledging these survivors for what they have endured, to ensure that it will never happen again.
Back to bed, or so help me?
It's me, Father.
Sister, my apologies. Boys have been testing me the last few nights.
No explanation needed.
It must be the musical component of this production, but it feels very haunting. It feels very sad. Is that a part of the mood that you want to leave with people so that they think about it and think over what they've watched?
Music is a really wonderful tool to be able to access our deepest emotions. So when the characters can no longer speak, they sing. So it accesses a place in all of us that is at a very deep level of who we are as people. And so I think that the music helps to lift us into a place where we can absorb the story in a deeper way. And so, yes, some of it is dark and haunting, but that is the reality of these people and what they were facing. But I think that there is healing in song, and and there is healing in our language and picking up our culture and being proud of who we are and where we've come from with all the complexities of our history. And that's what we hope to leave the audience with at the end of the day, is a message of hope and forgiveness, and that if we can all come together, that we do have a shot at reconciliation. But it takes each and every one of us engaging and being a part of the process on a daily basis.
And you've had to do a lot of legwork to really understand and identify with some of the people who have struggled through this piece of the history of this country. You've gone to several former residential school sites. You've interviewed people. Tell me a little bit about how that went.
Well, what I think is an amazing story that has started right here in Kamloops is that we workshopped the piece in 2015 alongside Western Canada Theatre at the Chief Louis Cultural Centre that was historically the residential school. It's now been reclaimed as a positive space, and the community uses it as a community space, trying to lay positive footprints on it, not wanting to tear it down and pretend that it didn't happen, but holding it there as a symbol of what we have overcome, and of that this history happened, and as horrific as it was, that we can move through it. And I think that over all of the years of my meeting with survivors and their families, and the intergenerational survivors of people who have really dealt with the intergenerational impacts of this history, what has been left with me, and I think what I didn't know coming in, and that was always a gift that survivors would leave with me, is that it is about forgiveness and healing, and that you can't go back and change what has happened, but that in order to move through that, we need to feel all of it. We need to acknowledge everything, and also part of that is acknowledging these survivors and their families who have, after all this 130-year devastating history, have kept their language, have kept their culture, and are now passing that on and being stewards of that culture for the younger generation. And so the elders and survivors that we've talked to have been so enthusiastic about this story being told, because it means that more people will know of these struggles and these histories, in order for us to make sure that this kind of history is never happens again. And I also think that that's a part of, I think, what a lot of people are trying to put into schools right now and into the education system, is a way of accessing stories like this, to be able to take it in, that's not just facts and figures in a textbook or something that we read on the news or read in a newspaper, that it's about theater has a great way of accessing the heart. And so this is about finding a way through music and dance and song to people's deepest selves, so that they can leave the theater changed.
Fantastic. It just seems like a very telling story. It seems like you are very excited to share this after all of the work you've put into it, all of the homework, and bringing it together onto the stage. I want to say thank you to you for giving us some time today to learn a little bit more about it.
Miigwech, thank you so much.
All right. The Children of God is underway now through until April 7th at the Sagebrush Theatre. You can certainly get tickets at kamloopslive.ca. We're back after a quick break. Stay with us.
First things first, we need to agree that word of this can't spread beyond us three. This is the plan, that no one gets caught. And from now we'll taste apples in your gut. We are hungry. We are tired of eating slop. It's chalk and crumbling. Choke it down before it comes up.
Again, I'll take my chances. I have to go home.
What about Tommy? I'll come back for him.
We're falling, but we will not touch the ground.
Hear me now, the sound is coming up the wall.
They sent us here, and this is what we found. Now all they say is forcing its way down.
We'll cover for you.